Our second speaker tonight is going to give us an update on what's happening with BRT, the bus rapid transit on Colfax Avenue. Emma Harrison is here tonight as a representative and a couple other folks. So Emma, go ahead and let us know what's going on.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to speak here tonight. I know many of you have been involved in the process, so we're happy to share more and excited to get you up to speed on what's happening with BRT. We do have a brief presentation before we get into Q&A. And before I dive in, I first just want to introduce the project team members that are here with us this evening. So when I introduce you, just raise your hand, they'll see you. We have John Stewart, the Dottie Project Director for East Colfax BRT with us. We have David Krussinger, the Dottie Transit Director. And we have Nick VanderKwaak, who leads the traffic and safety analysis on the consulting team. So thank you, Nick, for being with us as well. We may have one more join us, and I'll introduce him when he does. And I'm Emma Harrison. I am on the community engagement team. So just quickly, what we want to cover with you before we get into Q&A, I will do a brief recap of where community engagement stands to date. And then I'll kick it to John to talk a little bit about where the BRT project is in its timeline process and where we're headed, final design to pre-construction. And then David will really dive into the designs of BRT in Congress Park specifically, so from York to Colorado. I know that's something that's top of mind for you all, and we'll share some roll plots. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. So before we get started, I just wanted to recap quickly where we've been so far. Many of you know that we've had many community meetings so far this year. We've hosted 5 community meetings, both virtual and in person, and one in Aurora. So this is new for us this year, engaging the Aurora community in the BRT project because it's going all the way to I-225. So that was a good public meeting with them. We also are in the community at your events or events in your neighborhood. We've been to 5 festivals and community events this year and this summer so far, and we're always looking for more. So just let us know if there's one you'd like to see us at. We come to RNO meetings like this and bid board meetings as well. And really want to give you all the resources we can to provide the most up-to-date information on the project. So whether that's the survey we did in April, the transportation report we published in April as well, or website resources. So always looking for new ways to engage you all. And we are also engaging some stakeholders along the corridor. So think, schools, hospitals, large scale entities that really rely on public transportation to get either employees or residents to where they need to go. We're talking to them now just because we know construction starting next summer poses a lot of challenges and benefits to those people in regards to access. So engaging them now is what we're working on through the start of construction. And all of really this is to say that we're always looking for new ways to engage the community, and so welcome any ideas that come up. And with that, I will turn it over to John.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk briefly about where the project is at now. But before I get into that, I would also like to add that in addition to all those community touch points, I want to be available for all the neighborhood organizations to the maximum extent possible. I've gone to well, I don't know if I've gone to every one, but I've definitely visited the Bluebird bid and the Colfax bid and the East Colfax Neighborhood Association and the Fax Partnership multiple times. This is my first time with you guys, so thanks for having us on to talk about the project. So where are we at now? We've been working on this project, or the city has been working on this project rather, for a long time. I think we're in our 15th year of trying to get this project finished. We identified in 2020 the possibility of getting federal funding for the project. And so that's kind of on the left end of the timeline here. So we initiated our environmental review and preliminary engineering, and that culminated basically last summer with our FTA, Federal Transit Administration rating application that we turned in August. And that committed us to what we think the financial plan is going to be for the project and what the project is looking like, and showing that we're ready to receive, to start the process to receive federal funding. Since then, we've been really busy. In March, we received our rating from the Federal Transit Administration. We received a high rating. There's about 40 projects in the FTA's Small Starts program, and we're one of 3 that received the high rating. What that means is that FTA thinks that this is a really good candidate for a transit project along Colfax. So they agree with the city, they agree with VanderKwaak and CDOT and the city of Aurora and all of our other partners that have been helping us put this project together. So earlier this summer, we turned in all of our documents to conclude our environmental review. That's the submit our categorical exclusion as part of NEPA review. NEPA is the National Environmental Protection Act. So that kind of details what kind of requirements we need to do for our environmental review. As part of the FTA process for receiving federal funding. So we did that in July. They're currently reviewing those documents. And then also we selected a construction manager general contractor. That happened in July. We went through a competitive bid process, basically for finding who is going to be somebody that can help us figure out how much this project is going to cost exactly, and package our project together so that it has the least amount of impact on the community as possible. So we've selected them. That company is Kramer North America. So we're working on getting them under contract now to help with what we're calling pre-construction services. It's basically to help us get through the final design process. And right now we're getting ready to turn in a bunch of materials into the Federal Transit Administration to demonstrate that the project is ready for construction. Now, that's going to be a process. We still have they're going to review those documents, and then we're going to have to make changes to those documents. So it's still kind of a long process to get to actual construction. We're optimistic that we can start construction though in the summer of 2024. And so that we would start construction in the summer of 2024, do our construction for the next 2.5 years, obviously not the whole length of Colfax at one time, but we would phase that in various ways. We're still working on how to phase that out. And then we would start revenue operations in January of 2027. So that's basically where the project stands at right now. We're in the final design process. We're submitting documents to FTA to show that we're ready for construction. So I think we have another slide, Emma, isn't that correct? Yeah, okay. So this kind of details what's going on right now with the project. One thing that we're doing is we're trying to figure out the color palette for the logo. We did decide on the links. We worked closely with RTD because The links is actually going to be how you identify any kind of bus rapid transit line in the Front Range area. There is plans to have multiple BRT lines in the area, and so they will all be called the links. It will be how you link together various bus rapid transit projects to their light rail projects, and connect through transit in the city. So also we're working on refining our station design as well as our streetscape design, working through that pretty furiously right now. Also, we have to dedicate 1% of the budget of the project to public art. So we're working on with our friends at Arts and Venues, another department in the city, to get that set up, work on getting doing the process for selecting artists and where that art will be located. We're also continuing to engage with key stakeholders, people like you, other RNOs in the area, like Emma detailed earlier. We're still working on the curbside access plan and additional safety analysis along Colfax. So I know that you've probably heard about this, but we're doing a detailed curbside access plan where we're figuring out how parking will be utilized and what areas will need to have loading and unloading and that kind of thing. So we're still working through that. We're still identifying ways to support impacts to small business in the area. That's something that's very important to me and to the project. So we're working through finding mechanisms to provide support for small businesses. This is when construction is actually happening. And something that we just recently concluded was we talked to a bunch of different municipalities. I think we finished with 4 different municipalities that have been doing BRT projects recently. And so we talked to them about lessons learned that they had for their projects and how that experience has been for building a BRT project in these other cities. And we've been learning a lot through that process as well. So I think that kind of details where the project is at, where it's going in the short term. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Emma. I think we're going into the design. Is that correct?
Yes, and thank you, John. That's correct. And we do have one additional team member joining us that I did not introduce at the beginning. So James Moore leads design for the project. He's on the Persons team. So James, I'll kick it to you unless David, you want to steal the design still here.
Go for it, James. You're closer to that.
I'm sorry. I just touched my computer and everything went haywire. So I think I'm back up and running. So let's see. So let's start off with kind of an overall review of the corridor from York to Colorado.
Here we go.
See. Perfect. So we've got, let me orient everyone. The red is the dedicated bus lane, center running bus lanes. And you can zoom in a little bit, Emma, if you want, just while I'm describing these colors. The cyan is proposed sidewalk work. The green, those are parking spots. Now we've identified where the parking spots will land. As John said, we're working on the curbside access plan. So what type of parking has not been determined yet. That'll come in about a month or so. The blue color and the long rectangular shapes in the middle of the road that are blue, those are the station platforms. The platforms are near side. Thanks, Emma, for hovering over there. Platforms are near side, which means the bus will stop before it goes through the intersection. We also show north-south bike crossings of Colfax. Those are being accounted for, both bike facilities that are underway today as well as planned in the future. And let's see, last but not least, also in cyan, you'll see raised medians between the bus lanes. And then what's not shown is pavement work. So what we will be doing in Denver from Broadway to Yosemite is either resurfacing the pavement, so a mill and overlay, or a full replacement of the pavement in order to get the new crown of the road to work with the new lane configuration and roadway design. So let's see, maybe, what else can I talk about here? Maybe go back to the slide, Emma, that has the 2 long stretches on it.
Ew.
Now, so after I've oriented everyone with the colors, you'll see there are 4 stations within the stretch from York to Colorado. So we've got the Josephine, New York station. We have the Fillmore station. There's a station proposed at Madison. Thanks, Emma. And then finally, Colorado. You'll notice the square there at Colorado. There's also one of those at York and Josephine. That is what we're calling a mobility hub. That is where we've defined the intersection of a north-south bus route, as well as a either existing or proposed bike route. And then, of course, a lot of activity with vehicles and pedestrians. So you'll see at those locations specifically, you'll see an increased amount of bike parking, bike facilities, bike striping, and features like that. Let's see, other things unique to the design. So left turns, eastbound and westbound, are currently only permitted at signalized intersections. That is the only safe option with the buses in the middle of the road. What's nice about that is it eliminates conflicts. All the left turns will be protected, so you'll have a green arrow to make that left turn. Looking here on my screen, we've got westbound left turns at York, Columbine,
Like James may be having some technical difficulties. While he's figuring that out, I know you all will have many specific questions on these roll plots. So I think the purpose of presenting them now is just to give you a general overview, orient you to the legend and how to read them, and we can come back during Q&A. So lastly, before I open it up, I just want to mention all of the ways that you all can stay engaged with the project. We update our project website, denvergov.org/KwaakBRT, regularly. All of these roll plots are posted to the website, so you're welcome to dive into them. We also have our virtual engagement hub that really is just a virtual experience of KwaakBRT. You can also get in touch with us at any time, and we will respond promptly via the public inquiry form on the website. Again, this is available at denvergov.org/KwaakBRT. If you submit any question or comment, we will get back to you with our best answer. And then if you're not already signed up for our community updates, we send out notices for any community meeting that's coming up or any other type of engagement, whether it be a survey or a in-community event we're at. And I see James is back. James, yeah. I was just about to open it up for questions, as I know that they're going to have plenty on the robot. So with that, Vicki, I don't know if you have anything before you want to open it up.
No, Emma, I think that would be great. Maybe we need to keep your screen up with the maps on.
Yeah.
if,
Let me do it this way. Let me get to the PDF so we can scroll around it.
Yes, I am back, Emma. Thanks for covering for me.
No problem.
Technical difficulties.
so I can't, if anyone wants to put up a hand, I would be happy to call on you. Do we have any questions? Miles, do you want to start?
No, you said so.
Yeah. Can somebody just go over, we had a meeting and we were looking at the intersections and we couldn't figure out where you could make a left turn, where you could make a U-turn. Could you go through the intersection into the alleys and use the alley as a road to cross? Can you just walk us through where you can and can't make U-turns on each of these intersections? Because we didn't want to assume anything and it's kind of confusing.
Sure, Miles. We can start at the beginning, and I can first off with a global statement. Left turns are allowed where we have a left turn pocket at a signalized intersection. U-turns are allowed at all those locations. We've done the turning analysis. So U-turns are allowed at those locations.
So like the Bluebird, there's a light there. You could make a U-turn at the Bluebird. It's a T intersection.
You can make a U-turn on Colfax.
At the Bluebird.
Yes. No, yes.
So at Fillmore.
So there's a westbound at Bluebird, there's a westbound left turn lane at a signalized intersection. So that meets the criteria. You can make a U-turn there. Yep. You have another location?
So could people go through the intersection and go down the alley at the northern Fillmore because it lines up with the alley?
You take a right and
So currently our signage that we're proposing does not allow for the alley to
signage
section.
Stop them. They don't even stop at lights.
I'm hearing a couple people talk. It's hard to differentiate here.
You can always take a right.
Right.
Depending on which way you're going.
Miles, do you want to go through every intersection still, or
No. So would the alleys be one way? I'm just trying to, and
Nope.
the garbage trucks need to go into the alleys still, blah, blah, blah. So.
Yep, understood. So we've been putting a lot of time and effort into coordinating with waste management and talking about their routes, overlaying them with our design. We have meetings to come, and we've been doing turning analysis for garbage trucks in and out of alleys. So that is a major concern that we're dealing with and trying to solve that problem. Alleys will not be one way, they'll be two way.
So then will you put a do not enter sign in the alley for those intersections like at the northern Fillmore that lines up? Because there's, I think, one other place where the street lines up with the alley.
Yeah, and you're right, Miles, those are particularly challenging locations, but we won't put a do not enter because you will be able to take a right in from there if you're heading eastbound.
So then cars can just use it as a street and drive into the alley.
Like they can today, yes.
Okay, so you could end up having more cars in the alley as a street. Okay.
Potentially, just like they
Okay.
could today.
And then, so another quick follow-up question. It looks like you've got a median in the center, a raised median. How tall is that median?
Right now, Miles, it's 6 inches tall. We're working on what type of median. Right now, the winning option seems to be a slip form median that is kind of keyed into the pavement and doesn't require a lot of construction work and excavation to get it in there. I'm glad you pointed that out. That median between the bus lanes is to prevent illegal left turns across the bus lanes.
Will it be painted so people can see it at night?
We've discussed a lot about how to make it visible. As you can imagine, when it's snowing, it could be covered and hard to see. Right now, the prevailing opinion of the design team and Denver is that the paint would require a lot of maintenance. So we're thinking of other ways to make it safe and visible for all users.
So if I'm a pedestrian or I'm walking a bicycle or I'm a bicyclist, what happens at that point? How do people get across there?
Good question. So when I mentioned earlier, we do have on these roll plots, and I don't know, Emma, if you want to cycle through here until you see a north-south bike route. We've had a ton of, but we have specialized meetings just for bikes, and at all these locations where obviously here we're seeing the bikes crossing at an intersection, but where the bikes come in and they need to cross Colfax at an unsignalized location, we're providing brakes in that median to allow the bikes to pass through. And the brakes will be just big enough so that a bike can fit through in each direction, but not a car.
Can a wheelchair fit through?
No, they are designed for bikes at this point in time.
So if somebody is on, let's say, Monroe, and they're in a wheelchair and they want to go across the street, how are they supposed to cross?
They need to go to a signalized intersection at a crosswalk.
Did you guys verify that that doesn't violate any ADA rules or anything?
Yes.
Miles,
Okay. Go on.
let's
Yeah, I mean,
just,
you know, the spacing. So I'll touch on that real quick, Miles. We are working closely with city engineers and planners to identify appropriate spacing for crossings. So more to come on that, but we are very aware of public input on how far they have to walk to get to cross Colfax. So we're paying very close attention to that. Your question is similar to others, but for Monroe, you know, I would walk over to Madison, or I would walk a block over to Garfield, and I would use a crosswalk and cross at a signalized intersection with the current design as it's planned.
thank you. Judith, I think you were next. If you have a question, Judith Cohen. Judith,
I forgot to unmute. Can you?
there you go. Judith, you're still mute.
Okay.
Oh, I hear you now, Judith.
Okay, great. And in general, I would prefer a side running BRT, but that's not the source of my question. My question has to do, I know the whole point of this is to get more people riding the bus, that there's a lot of disorderly conduct on the 15. And for example, I was just riding it with my 7-year-old grandson a week ago, and somebody was listening to music and shouting along with the music. The person next to me was talking on the phone and using really bad language. A few weeks ago, I was there with my granddaughter and somebody lit up a cigarette and she asked to get off the bus. Also, there's an incredible amount of trash at the intersection of Colorado and Colfax at that bus station. I don't hear anything about plans to make riding safer or to clean up some of the bus stops. So I guess the question is, are there any plans?
I think that I can answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of discussion around that, Judith. So one of the things that we have to go through that the federal government requires us to do is it's what they call a safety and security certification process. But basically, it's to think about ways to make people feel safer on the bus. And it's something that we're working closely with RTD to figure out what's the best way to do that. And so we're working with RTD with their engineers, but in addition to that, we're also working with the Denver Police Department and the RTD police, as well as the City of Aurora Police, to figure out ways to make that safer, because I know that that's a concern that I've heard before. Now, regarding trash, that's another thing that we've identified. And we're trying to build into the construction agreement with RTD and the City of Aurora as well. We're trying to figure out how much trash cleanup needs to be done, and all sorts of other things in addition to the trash cleanup, things like graffiti cleanup. What happens if like if something gets damaged on the bus station, and we're putting a plan together to figure out how much money we need to set aside to be able to do that work, and how often we need to check to make sure that everything's in working order. And then we're going to work out an agreement between us to make that commitment to do that. So it's something, we're still in the design phase now, but it's something that we're trying to build into the design to accommodate for that. So I would say it's something that I personally and the team as a whole takes very seriously.
Thank you. Wendy, I think you're next, and then Cheryl. I'll have you follow Wendy. All right. Thank you for your answer. Wendy?
Hi there. I'm trying to get my computer to, there we go. I have a couple questions. I wondered, it sounded like when I was reading the plan that the goal is to have buses every 4 minutes as to improve the amount of transit available. If that's the end goal, why don't we do that now without all this construction disruption and money spending? We could have buses every 4 minutes coming up against the curb. I don't know what the benefit is to all the construction to have buses in the center of the street disrupting traffic and crossing and businesses just to get a center running BRT. Can you help me with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. I think during rush hour, we have something like 5 minutes between the 15 and the 15L. And so right now there's 2 bus lines that serve this area. There's kind of like the 15 has fewer stops. It's like the express line. And then the 15L like basically stops every other block and moves a lot slower.
You mean the other way around?
I
understand.
Okay, thank you. And so the idea is to consolidate that into one line, first of all. And so it's not you get the local or you get the express. It's just one line. The goal is 4.3 minute spacing, and the idea behind that is that we want you to just go to the bus stop and not have to worry about what time the bus is coming. We don't want you to have to figure out do the math of like, well, the local one comes at this time, but the express comes at this. And there's kind of like a calculation that people can have to do to figure out what's the fastest way to get to where they want. And we don't want
it's not really that difficult.
Okay. Yeah, you're smarter than me. So I'll give you that, Wendy. And so, and so the idea is, yeah, we have 4 minute bus spacing. And so you can just go to a stop whenever you want, and there'll be a bus in the next few minutes. So there's that. Now, the main reason that we're doing a center running is because of the time savings. Now, this is going to make the bus move a whole lot faster. If we kept with the existing, like currently, if we do 5 minute spacing, the time that it takes to go from one end of the bus line to the other, it's pretty astronomical. And so with the implementation of center running, we're going to have 30 minutes of time saving for that bus to go, which means instead of an 1.5-hour trip to go from one end of Colfax to the other, it becomes a 1-hour trip. And that's still a long trip, right? But that's 30 minutes of time savings. And that's the main goal for having a bus rapid transit. That's the difference between a regular bus line and bus rapid transit. All the things that we're doing is to make it move faster.
What do most people who ride the 15 do? Did they ride it from one end to the other? Or did they ride it for 10 blocks?
Well, most people that do it are making another connection as well. And so there's a lot of people that have to do it. Yeah, they're not taking it. The typical rider doesn't take it from one end to the other, but you're still getting a significant time savings. And if you're making a connection to one of the north-south routes, it's making the whole concept of transit move quicker. And so that's why we're doing it, is we want this to move quicker.
Okay, so where are 2 lanes of traffic going to go? You're losing a lane of traffic eastbound and a lane of traffic westbound. Where are those cars going? All those people are not getting on the bus, I promise you.
Okay, Wendy, thank you. Great question. Absolutely. And that's actually a complicated answer. So they're going to make a variety of different decisions. And so one of those decisions will be, especially if the bus is all of a sudden a lot faster, it makes it a more worthwhile calculation to think about taking the bus instead, like Judith did with her family. Also, some people will want to just choose another route entirely. And then, yes, some people will try and choose a different route that they think might be quicker, even though it probably won't be, but they might choose some other route.
And the other route will be through our neighborhoods. So have you done a traffic study about how much more traffic there will be in City Park South and Congress Park?
Absolutely.
And what does that traffic study say? Miles, have you seen a copy of that yet?
No, they said they hadn't calculated that yet. And
Thank you.
You're moving the traffic into the neighborhoods.
The traffic study is on the website. We've released the traffic study. We can make a copy available to you today, Wendy. Happy to do that.
I'd like you to send it to Miles. He's been asking for it for years.
We sent it to Miles.
Right, but at the last meeting, we talked about the calculations didn't include the impact on 14th because that was minutia for calculating all of the impacts of the traffic, that it just wasn't done. So
that's not true. It does have calculations for 14th.
And John, I'd just like to recognize that, so Nick VanderKwaak just came on video. Nick is part of the team that actually conducted the traffic safety report and analysis. So Nick, I'd love to just give you a chance to respond to the questions about 13th and 14th as well.
Absolutely. I cut out for a minute there, so I think I caught most of the question, but yeah, the traffic study is in the transportation report, which is on the website. And it did include 13th, 14th, 18th. All of the streets were covered within the study and what was looked at. It did show how traffic changes or will change with the design. And so when you reduce a lane of traffic on Colfax, many of the vehicles that were using Colfax, have make different choices because of the reduced travel lanes on Colfax. So the report details all of this, but the numbers on 13th and 14th, there is some increase, and 17th and 18th increase in number of vehicles that will use those parallel facilities that shift off of Colfax.
Do you have a summary of what how the numbers will increase on 13th and 14th and 16th and 17th?
Absolutely.
Yes.
There's an executive summary on the website as well.
And you don't have that at the top of your head right now?
I think Emma can probably drop it in the chat. I think that what we're seeing is that when there's at times that are other than rush hour, we're actually not seeing that big of an increase. However, if you're going at rush hour and you're going where most of the cars are going, so say at 4:45, 5 p.m. and you're traveling east, there will be some delays. There will be some additional traffic volumes there. And what we're expecting, according to the traffic analysis, is about, I think, and maybe Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's something on the order of a minute per mile.
That's right, from the travel time, and the number of vehicles on each of those streets is an increase of roughly 125 to 270 cars per hour, which averages down to about 2 to 5 cars per minute that are on those streets that aren't there currently. And currently there's, if you break it down per minute on those streets, it's a range of 20 to 30 cars a minute. So the increase you can see there is, about a 10% bump in number of vehicles that are choosing to use those facilities instead of Colfax.
And how does that compare to, for example, when the 14th is shut down for construction work? That the cars move to a different street. Is that the same amount of volume change?
Every closure is different. I mean, when you see 14th closed down or 17th as it was in the past, 17th was actually 4 lanes of traffic that were shut down. What we're showing on Colfax is a reduction of 2 lanes. So that was a bigger change and shift of traffic. So if you experienced in the other parallel streets, well, either of those streets were closed, that's kind of a similar feel to what when Colfax is closed, what those levels of traffic diversion might feel like.
Okay, another question. How many
Wendy.
Hello?
Wendy, you had a couple questions. Could I circle back if we have time?
Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. Cheryl, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, thank you. Well, Wendy actually asked a lot of my questions, so thank you.
Okay, good.
But what I'm just wondering, so of the BRT team, have you seen, when you studied other cities, did this endeavor result in any converts? Did people stop driving and start using the bus? And I think the 15 is, again, very unique, very much like Judith has pointed out. It's not the most desirable bus lane that people like to take. So taking all that into consideration, does this result? Do you think this will result in a convert and less traffic on Colfax? Thank you.
Sure. I'm happy to answer that one. And I will say that we have talked to other municipalities that have had amazing success stories with implementing BRT. And so there is a lot of optimism from me and the entire team, the folks that have been looking at this, the experts in this field, that if we clean up the bus line, if we make the pedestrian experience on Colfax feel like a better experience for humans, and not just moving as many cars per hour, and if we make the bus just that much more of an appealing option, that it can bring economic vitality to the businesses that live along there, that it can make taking a bus a pleasant and positive experience, and thus could really increase ridership over time.
Thank you. That's it for me, Vicki.
Thank you. Maggie, I think you're next in line.
Yeah, I do have a question, or actually it's maybe more of a comment.
Sure.
I heard the reference to U-turns being available at certain areas, but it's always been my understanding that U-turns are not permitted in the city of Denver, and they're certainly not permitted on East Colfax. I know because I got a ticket for it. And when I said there's nothing posted, they said it's part of the traffic laws. We don't have to post it. So I hope that you go back and you look at this U-turn kind of thing, because I think that will add even more bedlam to what you're proposing. Just my comments, and I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie. Dennis, you're next.
Hey all, my name is Dennis Moynihan. I live at 14th and Adams. Adams, as you haven't specified, but I can assure you, is one of the signalarized, how do you say it? The signalarized, it's part of the sacrifice zone that you're orchestrating. Adams Street, where I live, is already a dangerous street. 14th Avenue is reminiscent of a movie none of you seen because you're all too young, Death Race 2000, which came out in 1975, where crazy people on a car race cross country got extra points for hitting pedestrians. I have been on many a 2 a.m. jaunt to go investigate the collisions that happen on 14th Avenue because cars go 50 plus miles an hour. We have 3 lanes of traffic on 14th at Adams. There's no signal. There is a mid-block red light. And I invite any of you to spend an hour at that mid-block red light on 14th and Adams and watch how many cars just blow through the red light without even slowing down. It is a crazy avenue. Cars treat the red light like it's not even there. And we live in a hellish car-driven death zone. And I really think that your attempt to explain the marginal increase in traffic that's going to occur on 13th, 14th, 17th is far below what's going to happen. You are creating a traffic nightmare that is going to cause not a better, more pleasant pedestrian experience on Colfax. It's going to cost death. It's going to kill people on 14th Avenue. So that is my first comment. Let me also just back up and say, when I moved into this neighborhood 11 years ago, I was shocked to learn that we were going to have a Walmart forced on us by Mayor Hancock. I organized Stop Walmart Colorado, organized all the neighborhoods, and we blocked that $180 million project. You're here presenting a $200 to $300 million project, and I'm very confident that we can organize and block this project. So I'm going to devote myself, starting with, have already done the initial organizing, to block the BRT, not because rapid transit is bad. We want rapid transit, but the plan that you have, and I can tell you, and I think none of you were at the event with then Mayor John Hickenlooper and the Bogota Mayor Enrique Peñalosa in 2008.
Dennis,
and please don't interrupt me. Please,
Dennis,
this is all of this.
No.
This is a vanity project of Mayor Hickenlooper that is destroying our neighborhood and causing
Dennis, I'm going to ask Dennis.
So tell me again how you're going to
contain him, please.
Okay. What traffic calming will you implement on 14th Avenue and 13th? What actual physical barriers? And don't tell me, that there is literally no traffic enforcement on 14th. Zero. And by the way, we're going to block this project.
I would just like to devote a couple of minutes to Dennis, Victoria, Vicki, and say that, first of all, I've known about 14th and the issues that have been going on there. I've lived here for a little over 20 years, and I've always noticed what's been going on there, and it's always been a problem. And then the pandemic occurred, and all of a sudden it just got so much crazier, right? Like all of a sudden, and I feel like all over the city, it's just like driving rules went out the window. Racing on local streets in the city. I mean, this is definitely a huge problem within the city. And Dennis, I have empathy for that. Absolutely. I feel for you. Yes, I feel for you. Now, as far as what we're going, as far as you opposing the project, I understand. I think that there's a lot of good reasons, and I think that I support the project personally, but in addition, it's my job to build the project. But if somebody doesn't like the project and doesn't think that it meets the city's goals, I understand that. I respect your point of view, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for
Well,
coming.
have any of you ridden the Transmilenio in Bogota? Because the Colfax BRT is predicated on John Hickenlooper's view that the Transmilenio in Bogota was as great as Mayor Enrique Peñalosa made it out to be. And anyone who's ridden the Transmilenio or been in traffic in Bogota knows it's a debacle. And I invite any of you to go to Bogota and try to ride the Transmilenio. And this is what the Colfax BRT is predicated on. It's John Hickenlooper's relationship with Enrique Peñalosa, and Peñalosa.
Dennis, I'm going to ask you to stop.
Well, go and look at the Transmilenio.
Dennis, I'm
Bogota.
asking you to stop. I apologize. I try to run a very civil meeting. I do not endorse any name calling. I'm fully supportive of neighbors taking action, but this is not how Congress Park Neighbors operates. Wendy, did you have a follow-up question? And then I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you for coming tonight, BRT. I appreciate your time. Wendy, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, I wondered if this is already in any of the reports about the number of parking spaces between York and Colorado that will be eliminated, and how is the plan for people to use Colfax businesses if they can't get there? If they can't park on Colfax, they'll be parking on my street.
Understood. And well, I saw Nick just unmute. I think, Nick, you want to take that one?
I can hit that one. Yeah. We mentioned earlier the curbside access plan, which is currently underway, which we are working towards developing goals and future parking regulations and curbside management to look and see what's the best way to use the curb space that's available with the parking spaces. You are correct. The parking is being reduced directly on Colfax. And that's due to, especially at the station locations where the platforms take up some extra space. It has an impact on parking on those blocks specifically. The area between Josephine and Colorado has a reduction of about 45% of the parking spaces that currently exist to what is in the plans that were shared earlier. So that's many of the blocks are losing some, and some of the blocks are gaining some. The blocks specifically between Jackson and Colorado Boulevard don't currently have parking and will have parking. So acknowledging that there is some parking loss on Colfax, the curbside access plan is really to figure out and determine on the adjacent streets and other areas what needs to be done to protect all of the different users of that curb space and all the different groups that need to park and use the curb space for other reasons.
And
so we're underway with that, and we'll have some future stakeholder meetings to kind of talk through that process and as we progress through that.
And then, thank you. And then I had one more question about how are we making all of these painted changes, the bike crossings and all that stuff? How are we making those visible in snow?
That's a great question. I wonder if, James, can you talk about where, and we're still early with the design. I don't know how progressed the design is as far as what the markings are going to be versus what is going to be curb separated. So that's something that is ongoing still. Yeah, so I wonder, James, are you on? Are you able to answer that?
John, I think James got disconnected, but I think he
Okay.
touched on this earlier with the questions on the access to the alleys, and that we are, what you just said, working through that currently.
Yeah, and I will say, as far as like pedestrian routes, they're going to have the sloped ramps, the ADA ramps, and so those are still visible in the snow. We think that we're going to have some really good solutions for we're going to make the situation better than it currently is, because I know that there's certain areas along Colfax where all the snow and ice just tends to build up and it doesn't really go anywhere because it's in the shade, and the grades work out to where it doesn't drain. And so we're thinking through that and trying to fix those areas where we can, so that it won't be such an ongoing problem where you have some huge pile of ice and water and mud for an entire winter. So we're going to try and make that better.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Miles, Cynthia had a question, but I think she left the meeting. Miles,
yeah, thank you. This is just a follow-up of Dennis's question. So, and I presented this to you guys before. So on streets like Adams, which is one of the few left turns for the whole neighborhood, what are your projections for the traffic when it hits 14th? There's no light there. It's a one-way street. People are going to try to cross into the neighborhood. what's going to happen there? I know you've done calculations for how safe BRT will be, but now that you're moving the traffic to different areas, what are your calculations for the rise in traffic accidents or fatalities between, let's say, Adams and 14th?
Nick, do you want to take that on, or would you rather me?
I can take a crack, and if you have something to add, that'd be great. I will
Cool.
say most of the diversion that we're talking about, Miles, is generally kind of from Colfax to 14th, and less so diverting on some of the interior streets within Congress Park. So many of the diversions, people will make those decisions at some of the bigger arterials or in different parts of the network, and not necessarily choose to take a left at Adams just because that's the closest left turn. It may not be the most efficient route for them to use Adams. That said, there will be some changes in patterns of people taking turns onto Adams that don't currently turn on Adams because they can turn somewhere else in the existing condition. So that it is a modest increase. I wouldn't call it something that would cause tons of issues. I know that's Adams has. It is a narrow street, as many of the streets in Congress Park are. And so I know that's a concern of many folks who live on Adams and are near Adams. And so totally understand that. And we have numbers that we've estimated on some of those new signals as far as the impact of the left turn diversions. And we're still working through some of that and plan to expand the safety portions of the study. We've been really focused on Colfax, and we're still doing that as far as understanding the safety improvements and benefits that can happen as part of the project. That's going to expand also. There's plans to look in more detail at what to do with 13th and 14th as part of the project and kind of during the project process. And I think there's others on the call who can speak to that.
You haven't done the calculations because you say you're going to look at what that might be. You don't know at the moment.
We have the numbers from the model, which don't include every street. So the model.
And Adams isn't one of those streets. Is that correct?
Adams is not. I can't remember exactly, to be honest, Miles, but we do have the numbers at most of the major signalized intersections. The model is not designed to model every single street within the whole area. It models the general traffic flow on the bigger streets. And
right. And that was a
helps us make
conversation I
decisions.
had at the last BRT meeting where the designer said, oh, we didn't get to that minutia of detail, but it's like, if you live on Adams and 14th is there and it's rush hour, it could be catastrophic where the cars are just backing up because people don't quite understand how to get across the street. Or so I'm just like going in designing a corridor, that's a part of the design. If you've moved the potential for accidents from Colfax to these outlying areas, it does have an impact on the neighborhood in those areas. And so you should be able to account for that. And how are you going to offset it? And so it's like, that's the kind of information I think that's really, really important. It sounds like that hasn't been done yet.
Thanks for your comment, Miles.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. This is a difficult topic with a lot of potential problems, known problems, and unknown issues. So,
And we're going to shut it down.
Dennis, I'd like to sign off for the evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Our next meeting will be October 18th. And I'm sure we'll be revisiting BRT issues along the way. Have a good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, BRT.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.